just for fun. I don't even have to do this anymore, but it's fun. And it shows you the progress. I hope. Let's see. Twice, just little je ne sais quoi. So, back again. This time, we are dealing with Hawkwind's album PXR5, one that I personally like quite a bit. Throw it up in the corner. And it gave me a chance to riff off some of my heroes, which was, it's the best thing ever. How can you not love that? And I don't think there's too much else. I'm playing around with that new fill light, and it had a fireworks thing, and yeah, I had to try that out. It's like a ham hock in your cornflakes. If you get that reference, I want to drink with you. Anyways, not much more to say. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again later. Let's check out how this looks. Love you all. Bye. Round 2. I recorded the first narration for this, but yeah, my Zoom recorder ran out of memory on the card, and there was no warning, just the file was there, and then it was truncated. So great UI design there, guys. Really knocked it out of the park with that one. And now, of course, we are on Hawkwind's album PXR5, which I really enjoy this album quite a bit. It's, Space Ritual is a classic, but this one is kind of an outlier that I really enjoy. And took me a bit to decide which song off from it to riff on for this, comic, but there was no way I was gonna bypass a chance to have JG, Ballard, Hawkwind, and the little guys all at once. So just perfect. I was like, it's a little dark, but it fits with the Kelp Bed, and it fits with the themes thereof, so it's a wonderful thing. Now, one of the interesting things, I've grown obsessed with line weight in here. So, of course, I'm using the Tachikawa nibs for all the lettering, and of course, that's a nod to Pogo and how great the lettering was on that, but also I enjoy using it to stress words, which I trace back to my love of, classic stand-up comedians. And having done stand-up myself and written for people, the worst thing in the world is when you write a gag and somebody uses it, but the inflections and stresses are all wrong and it just falls flat. Listen to Lenny Bruce and the way he puts weight on certain words and the cadence with which he speaks. It's interesting. You can put the same material in different people's mouths, and their delivery can make or break a joke. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Nodding to Pogo, but I also like the stress on certain words. So that's why I use the Tachikawas. And then, of course, I use the comic Z-nib for outlining all the speech and thought balloons. And I wanted the building itself to have that same type of weight. And then you don't want to take away focus from the little guys down there on the bottom. So all of those are done with the comic Z-nib. Now, when it comes to the organic materials, such as the trees and clouds, then I switch over to the brows, extra fine arrow point nib, just because it gives it a look. Even though you can flex all these nibs, that line weight is going to be narrower. And, this may be down to self-delusion. I grant that immediately. It's entirely possible. Especially since today's episode is brought to you by Yoda OG, so yeah. And I am a bearer of limited intelligence. But that Browse extra fine arrow point nib it's a joy to use, especially for the way I've been loving working with it, where you can see here when I'm doing straight lines and details, I'm moderately choked up on the nib holder there, but when it goes into the organic material, that's more about letting the pen find its own way across the paper. I'll rough out the shapes, which you can barely see there, but then you kind of let the nib do as the nib does. The nibs do as the nib does, Jerry. And another thing that I should speak on here is when it comes to using nibs, especially your extra fines and your delicate nibs, I see a lot of talk online about passing your nib over a flame, or soaking it in rubbing alcohol, or even brushing it with toothpaste in order to get the protective coating off. And yeah, no, your nibs are delicate instruments and they're already tempered, so don't go heating them up and doing all this crazy nonsense to them. Use your own spit. Just lick them, spit on them, put them in the spit for 5 minutes, go make a cup of coffee, come back, wipe it off. You're golden. Your spit is acidic. You don't have to worry about it. And you'll see people that aggressively defend this idea of, passing it through lighter flame and all this stuff. And go out and watch some video. You can find it on YouTube. Watch professional calligraphers. I mean, the Royal Society of Calligraphers, like one of my favorite calligraphers, he works for the Royal Society, writing down English laws on vellum, and he will tell you, just use spit. Now, zebra comic G's are the exception to the rule, because those are so heavily coated. You're gonna have to use a little bit more than spit, but your extra fine nibs and your very flexible ones, you don't want to screw with the tempering and all the other you just don't do it. Spit's free, for God's sake. But then again, people, they love their mythologies, and they also love spending crazy amounts of money on stuff. And we've all known for a long time that the art world is where a lot of dark money gets laundered. I think the same thing is true for art supplies, because art supplies are ridiculously overpriced. So anytime you can find a way to get around that cost, go for it. There's nothing more disheartening. I mean, at least I admit I am talentless, but I'm not rocking super expensive stuff. And you see that all the time, especially on YouTube. I mean, everybody has their own form of stupid. I don't want to crap on anybody's form of stupid, but when you see someone just doing crap work and they have hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of material sprawled out, you just kind of question what's going on there. Now, the same thing applies like in the world of magic. There's always people that are buying more and more expensive books and props and stuff in the hopes that'll make them better at their craft. And it's just hours put into it. That's all you do. Just keep on doing it over and over and over and over. That's why I was a sleight of hand magician, because that's just practice. That's all you can do. Of course, Heaven Grendel, you can't really do sleight of hand. Puts a damper on it right there. Now here, the Neptune brushes. Oh my god, I love these brushes. These may be one of my favorite ones. That and those cheap Chinese calligraphy brushes. But the Neptunes are they are perfect. I don't know what the balance is, what they're doing. Mind Watercolorist probably has a whole episode just on Neptune brushes and what makes them special, so I would go check that out. That and they're inexpensive, so of course they're gonna score high on my list there. And that's the other thing, when I do the trees and that type of thing, kind of rough it out, then ease up on the nibble or kind of pull it back, let the nib interact with the paper, it'll come up with the shapes, because nature is never regular. And that was kind of Jack Smith's thing with buildings. If you watch Jack Smith and the Destruction of Atlantis review video that I did, you should definitely check out that movie. But he has an entire rant on buildings are only rectangular because they're easier for engineers and that type of mindset to deal with. They don't actually reflect anything within the natural world. And I'm kind of with him there on that one. So I wanted to highlight the difference between the two. And I should also point out, if you haven't seen the movie High Rise, Whedon's a genius. You should definitely check out all of his films. Field in England, High Rise. I even liked his adaptation of Rebecca. Yeah, get upset with that, I don't care. You should go read The Last Psychiatrist book. It's sadly porn to get a good read on Rebecca. That was pretty impressive when he pulled that one off. Sure to really piss off some classicists out there, but that's what you should be doing anyways. And I've always found it interesting that Americans drift towards Philip K. Dick and that kind of amphetamine-soaked paranoia that was so prevalent during the mid to late 70s. And the English tend to go to Ballard. And though I know that's because they're from the respective countries, I find it interesting there's not more overlap. I think my first Ballard was The Drowned World, and then it was kind of like Saw Research's Atrocity Exhibition. So, yeah, I think they're complementary. I would highly recommend both authors. And Calvert, this is just strictly his lyrics, So for maybe the first panel, the rest straight from Calvert. And I probably should have double checked whether Calvert was the lyricist for this. The man's such a poet. I don't doubt this is entirely his. I'd put Vegas odds on that. And the other thing is, I never use a straight edge when I'm working on these. If that's what drives you nuts and you decide don't like it, that's kind of good. Kind of reminds me of Alan Moore when they asked him why he made the first chapter of Voice in the Fire. It's such a chore to get through with a made-up Neanderthal language, and he was like, if you can't get through that first chapter, the book's not for you. Which I think there's something to be said for that attitude. Now, for the building, once again, to set it up, I switched over to alcohol-based markers. I wanted texturally, kind of sets it apart from the rest of it. Once again, self-delusion, very strong, but here it is. And it is summer, so the windows are open. You're probably catching that. Summer in the hood. Welcome to Crown Heights. You get a lot of helicopters, airplanes, motors, yada yada yada. And coming up here on the very end, I kind of left a little something extra in case you were patient enough to like sit through this whole thing. Bless your heart. And I thought this was kind of funny, so I decided to pull out for this one. I can't believe I just said that. Oh my god. Heather. Bless your heart. And here you go. If you look over at the right hand edge, you'll see the shit starter extraordinaire Sybil himself kind of come busting through because, you know, I screw my therapy ball, and then you'll see him enter stage left very quickly before heading back into his room. This kind of like the pigeon super highway in our apartment. There he goes. I thought that was funny. Anyways, we're at the end. Love you guys so much. Thank you. And have a beautiful week. Bye.